All right. Thank you so much for coming today, Sarah. So can you introduce yourself? Tell a little bit who you are, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Sara Morrison. I'm the Director of Operations at Praxis, and I do a number of things. I do some interviews for applicants, and I do a lot of behind-the-scenes work when it comes to building automated processes and checking on our data.
There you go. Pretty cool. So what's one thing you do every day that helps make you more valuable?
Yeah, so I thought about this question some because I feel like everybody has the cliche answer of do one thing every day that moves you toward your goals, and then it's super vague because everybody has different goals. So I'm going to give another vague answer, but I think it is more specific than just do one thing, and that is you have to measure what you're doing. You have to keep track of what you're doing every day, because if you have no plan, if you're not keeping track of it, then you might not actually be moving in the most efficient path toward your goals. Athletics is one of my favorite go-to examples. So if you want to be a professional athlete, every day is not in the gym. Every day is not, a 20-mile run. Some days are for stretching and yoga and sleeping. And if you aren't keeping track of everything you're doing, you might just one day wonder, why does my body hurt so much? And then if you have something to look at, you can say, oh, I just went hard 16 days in a row. That's why I feel dead. So yeah, I think you have to, as someone who loves data and measurement, you have to keep track of what you're doing to have an efficient plan moving forward, and be able to actually move toward your goals.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what's something that you do in order to make sure that you have this plan and aren't overexerting yourself early on?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my personal life, I have a running log. I like running, have been running since I was in middle school, and keeping track of what I do is a way for me to see patterns. If you do get injured, you have a record that you can take to the doctor or the physical therapist saying, I ran 9 miles this day, and then the next day I felt terrible. Why was that? And usually they can let you know. And then in the professional world, we experiment a lot at Praxis, whether it's a new marketing technique, a new email, a texting campaign, and you have to keep track of the results of these experiments to know what's worth trying again, what's worth tweaking, what's worth throwing more money at. So you're not just, blindly feeling around out there as you're trying to run a business.
Yeah. So was there a certain point in your life where you realized that you couldn't just jump into daily action, needed to make a plan?
I'm not sure I had a moment of realizing that because I've always loved lists and organization and writing things down. I do know that I have a bit of a bad habit of relying on my memory because I think I have a good memory. And I can remember when I was in college, we still used paper planners. A lot of us didn't have Google Calendar and stuff. And I can remember, I think it was my senior year, maybe my junior year, where I was the busiest thinking, where's my planner? Probably 20 times a day, every day. And so having a system that works for you, whether it is a written planner or now obviously Google Calendar, which is you can't lose it. It's on the internet, which is much better. But I think there is a threshold that people hit, even if you have an excellent memory, where you're not going to be able to store all of that information in your brain anymore, and you need to have a system to rely on. And for me, I think I learned that most significantly in college, which helped me have that system set in place when I went into the working world.
Yeah, well, that's great. And last question, what is the biggest change you've seen, like positive change in your life, knowing that you have to take this route and keep track of what you're doing?
I would say you probably are less likely to repeat the same mistakes. It does not mean that you perfectly learn from every experience, but for myself, it's been easy to see, again, I'll use running as an example. It's been easy to see times where I don't take enough rest, times where I try to push through an injury, and then it's 3 months of on and off running where it could have just been 2 weeks and then recover and then go back at it. It's hard not to make those same mistakes again and again. But I think, fool me once, like shame on me, fool me twice, or fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, is kind of a good analogy for that, in terms of it's okay if you make some of the same mistakes again. It's a learning process, it's a growing process. But if you continue to make them over and over and over again, you probably don't have a good organization or documentation system in place.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you for coming on. If people want to find out what you're doing, how your system's working, if there's any updates, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I write on the Praxis blog occasionally. So that's just discoverpraxis.com/blog, and have some of my projects on there in terms of things that I built, things I like talking about in terms of data and operations. And then I have my personal blog is Morrison Sara, SARA.com.
Cool. Thank you so much, Sara.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome.